What is up, bros and broettes? I'm Inkslasher, and as you guys know, the Black Ops 4 beta is now come to an end. Actually, yesterday it came to an end, and I wanted to take a day, kind of reflect on what came out in the beta, what I thought of it, and now today I'm going to make a video giving you my full opinions on whether or not this is going to be the game that saves Call of Duty. I know that's a little bit of an over-exaggeration, but for the past couple Call of Duties, a lot of people have been disappointed with the games, not liked certain aspects, and been waiting for Treyarch to release their next game. And I wanted to talk about whether this is the game people have been waiting for, or this is just going to be some random other Call of Duty game. So first things first, my opinion, I think this beta was not only good, but the best beta that's ever been released for a Call of Duty game. Prior to this, I would have to say the best beta was Black Ops 3, but really, this beta ran smoother, there was less problems, I had more fun playing it. Yes, it's a different Call of Duty game, but hey, I really enjoyed it. I know it's not going to be for everyone. That's the big thing I'm going to stress here. A lot of people aren't going to like the health changes. A lot of people might not like the time to kill changes, but it's something new, and I think that's a breath of fresh air for Call of Duty, and I think that's why I had so much fun playing this. Now, before you call me a Call of Duty cocksucker and just say I'm way too happy about this game and just trying to promote it, really, no. There are some certain problems with this game that we're going to address throughout this video. The point I'm getting at is just I had a lot of fun playing it, and it's mainly because of that new factor. I like the new health system. I like the new time to kill. I really liked all the weapons. A couple of the maps I didn't love so much, but all in all, I just had a lot of fun playing it. Even the new game modes I really enjoyed. Now, what I wanted to talk about first is the time to kill. I've made it pretty clear throughout a couple of my videos that I like the new time to kill. I like that it's longer. I think it adds a certain skill gap that we've never seen in Call of Duty before. But the thing is, this is not the first time Treyarch has actually screwed around with the time to kill in Call of Duty. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the first time they actually did this was Call of Duty Black Ops 1. When Modern Warfare 2 was released, it had an incredibly fast time to kill, plus stopping power was in the game, so you just dropped people insanely fast. Then when Black Ops 1 came out, the game changed a little bit. They made it so it was about a 1 bullet longer time to kill, and the interesting thing about this is there was a lot of hate for it back then. People said they didn't like it as much. Some people stood up for it and said, you know what, I like this, I think it adds a little bit to the game, but Treyarch really stood there headstrong and said, no, this is how we like this is how we want the game to be played, and it ended up being one of the fan favorite Call of Duty games ever. You see, the one thing I really do like about Treyarch is they're not afraid to take risks with Call of Duty. Now, the thing is, if people really stand up and say, you know what, I hate this, most of the time they take it out of the game, but for the most part, Treyarch knows what they're doing, knows what they want their game to look like, and ends up building an awesome Call of Duty game. That's why I loved Black Ops 3 so much, and that's why I'm so confident that Black Ops 4 is going to be a pretty damn good game. So going into the second weekend of the beta, I talked about a bunch of things I wanted to see changed, and almost every one of those things got addressed, minus a couple that once again we're going to address in this video. But going into weekend 2, the two things that they added are, first of all, a new map called Hacienda. This is the one you're watching on screen here, and if you ask me, this is probably the fan favorite map after the entire beta. It reminds a lot of people of Raid, the aesthetic of it, the way it's laid out, how one side of the map is surrounded by water, the other side is landlocked. It reminds a lot of people of Raid. I think it's a little bit bigger than Raid, there's more stories than Raid, but I really do like how it plays, and it's my second favorite map. My first favorite is Frequency. I don't really know why, I just know that every single time I play on it, I get like over 3 or 4 kill death, even when I'm playing bad, and for some reason, I just really like that map. Now, aside from that, the second thing that they added going into weekend 2 is a new game mode called Heist. Now, this is a game mode that we've never seen before in Call of Duty. It has a mechanic that we've never seen before in Call of Duty, and that's money. You literally buy your weapons, buy your gear before every single round, very similar to Counter-Strike. And for the most part, this game mode was received really well as well. I think the two big problems with Heist as of right now is everyone buys a whole bunch of body armor. One of the body armors actually gives you an extra 150 health, and I think a lot of people found that really annoying. And then the other really weird thing about Heist right now now is if you go to buy, let's say, an SMG, the MX-9 costs $750, whereas the Spitfire costs $1,500. These two weapons are actually a lot more similar. I don't know why the price difference is so different, and I think that's something they really have to balance out in that game mode, how much different items cost, but I think that's something they'll figure out over time and eventually get perfectly. But the thing I found interesting about Heist is when the developers were talking about it, when they were announcing that this game mode was going to be coming out in the beta, they were talking about it like they didn't know whether or not people are going to like it. And once it came out, it seemed that everyone in the community really loved it and really welcomed it as a new game mode into the game. And I really love to see that. I found that really interesting. But all in all, I really did enjoy Heist. It's one of my new favorite game modes. But now that I've kissed the game's ass enough, let's talk about the things that I really didn't like, and let's get into it with everyone's hot topic, which is body armor. So the thing with body armor is after Weekend 1, a lot of people were hating on it. Basically what body armor did after Weekend 1 was add an extra bullet of health to every single character. They changed that going into Weekend 2, and the two big changes are, instead of blocking one full bullet of damage, it blocked a percentage of that bullet's damage. On top of that, the person who kills the person who is using body armor gets an extra 25 score, which I think is a pretty good fix, and I think it feels a lot better in Weekend 2, but every once in a while, I lose a gunfight to someone who is using body armor, and I know that the body armor played a factor into me losing that gunfight, and that makes me so angry every single time it happens, and I just think to myself every time it does happen, if that wasn't in the game, I would still be alive, maybe I would get a strike team, maybe I would get a mantis, and all in all, I think at this point, body armor is actually balanced, but it's still really fucking annoying. And I really do think that's the big thing. I don't think it's an argument of whether or not they've balanced body armor correctly. I think it's an argument of whether or not this deserves a spot in the game, because every time someone dies, they're pissed off about body armor. And that's something that you don't want in a game that you play, is something that pisses you off. I'm sure all of you have that friend, or maybe it's even you, that plays a video game and every single time they die, they have an excuse. Oh, that wasn't my fault. Oh, I should have killed that person. Oh, that was all lag. All body armor does is give that person another use or another excuse of why they shouldn't have died there. And that is never something that should be added into a game. So, as far as my opinion goes, just take body armor right out of the game. In my opinion, it has no place. All it's going to do is frustrate players, get people mad, and give people an excuse to be pissed off at the game. Now, next we have movement. Movement is another hot topic a lot of people are talking about, but I think it's in a sweet spot where it is right now. Basically, all they've changed since the first weekend is they've made the slide distance and speed slightly slower than Weekend 1, to the point where you can't even notice it, and then made it so that your successive jumps, every time you jump back to back, is smaller and smaller. That way it avoids people bunny hopping. I think this is perfect. It keeps the game fluid and fast. At the same time, it's not ridiculously fast, or it's not annoying like bunny hopping was. So I think they really did find the sweet spot there, and I like where it is going into the end of Weekend 2. The next thing I wanted to talk about is score streaks. This is something I complained about to a pretty large extent last weekend, and they've made them better, but they're still not perfect. I think the strike team, the mantis, are both very good right where they are. I think the attack helicopter is still weak simply because so many people are using cold-blooded. I think the strafing run is terrible for the amount of score that it costs. And then finally, the gunship, it simply isn't good enough, mainly because most of the maps that we played are, for the most part, inside, which means it's very hard to get a lot of kills, because most of the time, people just run inside as soon as the gunship comes out. So, the thing you'll notice about all three of those score streaks that I think are weak is all of them are up in the air, and I think this comes down to the map design of Black Ops 4. Most of the maps take place inside. If you go outside, then you'll be killed by the score streaks, but most of the maps are in buildings, in caves, that kind of thing, and that causes the aerial score streaks to be much, much worse in this game. So, really, there's no fix to that other than simply using the ground score streaks like the Mantis and Strike team, or they're going to have to give quite a large buff to the aerial score streaks because so many of the maps have so many inside areas. Now, the one other problem I've had with score streaks has to do with the HCXD and Mantis. As of right now, they can't go up slopes in any way. Not just stairs, but slopes as well. I've found problems on Gridlock trying to go up the highway signs back there on both the Mantis and HCXD. So I think there's going to need to be a fix for that, but that makes sense. This is a beta. Of course, they're going to have small problems like that. But as of right now, score-wise, I find the Mantis to be the best score streak in the game. I can pretty much get one every single game, and it's going to get me probably upwards of 5 kills every single time. So as of right now, that's my favorite score streak. But for the most part, all the ground-based score streaks minus the sentry gun I find to be pretty good. All the aerial ones I find pretty weak. I think the best solution for the aerial ones is simply lower the score of them. They're easier to get. That way you're not as frustrated when they only get you 3, 4, 5 kills instead of getting a 10 kills like a gunship normally would or should. Now, the one other thing I found for the Black Ops 4 beta that I found quite interesting is the weapon balance. For the most part, the weapons are very balanced, and I think that comes down to having the extra health allows for the development team to be more picky with how much damage certain weapons do, how much damage certain attachments do with weapons, and also because certain weapons only have certain attachments, that helps with the balance as well. And for the most part, I find the weapon balance pretty good. The assault rifles do good at long range, SMGs good at short range, LMGs are good, but the aim down sights and reload time are a little bit longer. I think for the most part, the weapon balance is pretty good, aside from one weapon, and that's the ABR. I find that the ABR simply has the best time to kill at every single range, especially with its operator mod. That's the only weapon coming out of the beta that I would have to say I think they're going to have to nerf just a little bit. It's just a little bit too overpowered. Its time to kill is a little bit too fast. But other than that, I was pretty pleasantly surprised with the weapon balance. Now, the last thing I wanted to address, and this is actually the only thing from the Weekend 1 video I made that they didn't address going into Weekend 2, and that was a couple of user interface problems I have. The main one is when you get killed and you look at your kill cam, you can't see what weapon the enemy's using, nor can you see what perks or anything like that. I think that needs to change. I like being able to see what my opponent is using in my kill cam. That's been a staple in kill cams for a very, very long time, and I don't see why they would take that out in this game. So I really hope they add that in the final game. And then just a couple of little user interface problems in the menus and that kind of thing. But there was one that I wanted to focus on, and that's when you spawn into a game. When you spawn into a game, you pick your specialist character, and then it gets you ready to spawn into the game. And then it counts down and doesn't give me a chance to choose my class. Yes, I can scroll over, click on pick a class, and then choose, but what I would prefer is if just right after you chose your specialist character, your choose a class menu just opened up right away. There's no reason why that can't happen, and that way I wouldn't spawn into the game with the wrong weapon or the weapon I used last game. I find that really annoying and something that I think would be incredibly easy to fix, and hopefully is fixed going into the final release of the game. Now, there was one other thing I wanted to address before the end of this video, and that's a comment that I've seen on a lot of videos. People have talked to me about my live streams, which, by the way, if you want to check out my live streams, the link to my Twitch is down in the description. And that is that this game has a lack of polish, which, first of all, I don't quite agree with, but I think the reason for that is pretty simple. This is a beta. There really shouldn't be that much polish. Yes, it's 2 months away from the actual release of the game, but what you have to remember is that there's a lot of things left out of the beta. You may notice that none of the specialist characters have any skins you can choose, which are definitely going to be in there at the release of the game. There's no camos for the weapons, there's no challenges, and that's one of the things that I think Treyarch does better than any other COD development studio is that polish, is the camos, is the different challenges, is those small things that keep you playing the game. For example, an amazing example of this is in Black Ops 3, the hero gear and the hero gear challenges are what really kept a lot of people playing the game. You gotta know that they're gonna have something like that going into Black Ops 4, but of course we're playing a beta, so that kind of thing isn't going to be out yet. So I'm really interested to see what this game looks like going into the final release. I'm interested to see what all the challenges are like. One thing people keep asking is, what are they going to do for microtransactions? Are supply drops going to be in the game? If I was a betting man, I would bet that they're not going to do supply drops simply because they saw how well just selling skins has worked out for Fortnite. I wouldn't be surprised to see them go with some model like that, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see what they do with that. But as of right now, my guess is no supply drops, but we'll have to wait and see. But guys, I would like to hear what you guys have to say. What do you think of the final weekend of the multiplayer beta? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? What didn't you like about it? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, it would be awesome if you could hit that like button. I'm looking forward to the Blackout beta coming out in September. I'm definitely going to cover it just like I covered the multiplayer beta. But until then, be sure to stay subscribed to the channel to keep up to date on all my Black Ops 4 content. And guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace out.